We live in curious times whereby it is honest people, rather than the thieves, who are obliged to hide. This book is dedicated to all those who wonder why. Chapter 1. Coffee with a Stranger. There is nothing more enjoyable for me than when the day starts off on the right foot. I therefore try to do everything in my power to facilitate this. I wake up early, have a shower, get dressed, and I go to my favorite cafe in Rome's Piazza Navona to have a coffee while admiring the beautiful Fountain of the Four Rivers created by Gian Lorenzo Bernini in 1651. Oh, on the way out I make it a point to ignore the mailbox. This was just one of those days. The sun had just come up, people were going about their business, and the first tourists were arriving at the square. There I was, sitting with my coffee, enjoying a smoke, when a distinguished gentleman in his late 50s approached me and spoke to me in fluent English. "Good morning, Alex. How are you today? I'm not very good at recognizing people out of context, so if I meet someone in their workplace and then I encounter the same person elsewhere, my mind sometimes fails to connect the dots." I looked at him, desperately trying to figure out who he is and where we may have met. He smiled and said, "We have met many times but have never been formally introduced. That's why you don't recognize me." Well, that's a goddamn relief, I thought to myself. "Almost," he said, smiling at me. "Almost what?" I asked, smiling back. "A goddamn relief," he said. My instincts immediately went to yellow alert and were beginning to mobilize. At the same time, a wave of curiosity swept all over me. Could this guy be a policeman that has been keeping me under observation? Apart from a few unpaid parking fines, I'm clean. Could he have mistaken me for someone else? If that was the case, the sooner we straighten out this misunderstanding, the better it is for the two of us. In my experience, I discovered that trouble always has a way of finding you. The more you try to avoid it, the more determined and persistent it becomes. I decided to be cautious, play the courteous, well-mannered card, and milk him for further information. "Would you care to join me for a coffee?" I asked. "I'd love to," he replied. "I have a very interesting story to tell you." "That sounds very nice," I said. "Before you begin, let me inform you that 1. I only have a few coins with me. 2. I have an unshakable religious faith, but otherwise I have some time for a pleasant conversation." "That's what you think, but anyway, it's all I ask of you," he said in a serious voice. "How do you mean that, sir?" I asked. "Well, the quantity of coins you carry may turn to be irrelevant, your religious faith may turn to be false, and the conversation, though interesting, may not turn out to be pleasant. As for time, there's either never enough or too much of it," he replied in a courteous tone. "How very true," I said. "Are you a philosopher, a policeman? If so, how can I help you?" He laughed and said, "Rest assured, as I said before, I'm only here to tell you a very interesting story." After a long pause, he added, "My story and yours." "Okay, I'm all ears." He sipped his coffee, opened his eyes wide, staring me into the back of my skull, and then exclaimed, "This world is mine." "Well, good for you, sir," I replied. "I am the creator," he said. I tried very hard to repress a burst of laughter and thought to myself, "Oh, that's what this is all about. Well, you're right up my alley, pal." I love this kind of discussions. The day is young, and I have plenty of time today. Let me play along with this guy. With all the pensive coolness I could muster, I said, "Oh yes, that's very interesting." "Well, in my modest opinion, the graphics are excellent, but the plot sucks." He roared with laughter, and then turned serious again. "You don't realize how right you are." By that time, all the tables of the cafe had been taken, and we were surrounded by the usual cacophony of a typical Roman cafe in a typical Roman square. "Don't you think that it's getting quite crowded and loud here?" "Yes, I believe so. But isn't that part of what makes this city so interesting and unique?" He took another sip of his coffee and smiled. "Quite so. Yet I have much more exciting memories of this very spot. Below us is what remains of Domitian's Stadium, the remnant of a bygone era that I am very fond of. He then made a strange guttural sound, waved 3 fingers above his coffee cup and said, "I think that these people have other things to do and will soon be on their way." No sooner had he spoken those words, everybody around us got up casually and left. I looked around and expected others in the square to take the free tables that had just been vacated, as was usual for that cafe at that time of day. But on that day, that did not happen, and those tables remained vacant. "Well, sir, you seem to know me, but I didn't quite catch your name." "My name is impossible for you to pronounce, but some of you know me as Yaldabaoth. I belong to a group of beings that are creators of worlds." "I see," I replied. "Are you a foreign theatrical or film producer with your crew?" "You could say that, but on a huge scale. We create worlds for our survival, sustenance and amusement. This we do in a similar way that you build farms or go hunting for your own needs." I was puzzled. "So you are a farmer or landowner?" "Yes, only that my farm is this world and you are the livestock or game," was his answer. I measured up this guy and concluded that in case of necessity, if he made a move towards me, I could take him down without too much effort. At the same time, I did not want to alarm him, so I played along. In any case, I made sure that the heavy crystal ashtray remained at arm's length at all times. He seemed to read my mind and said, "Don't worry, you won't need that today. It would be futile anyway." I lit a cigarette and said, "I'm trying to stop smoking." Then I quickly changed the subject. "This sounds very interesting. Are you telling me that you are gods?" A sly grin appeared on his face. "Precisely. Yours truly, the one and only," he replied. If you would like to acquire a physical copy of this book, please click the link provided below in the description. Thank you for listening.